Good afternoon, good morning, whenever you're listening to this. But if you're on the live show, good afternoon, Canucks fans, and welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by Bet365. My name is Dave Quadrelli. I am joined by Harman Dial, and we are going to be talking goaltending today. There's going to be a few things we talk about because there's some stuff actually around the league that I want us to dive into as well. We're going to be playing Family Feud. It's a bit of a loaded Thursday show, so let's jump right into it. Before we do that, though, I want to tell everybody about our Super Chats and our Super Chat charity partner this season, the BC Mental Health Foundation. You want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show? Hit us with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. Harman, a thin goaltending market in the NHL this offseason. Now, I don't know who's going to be available via trade, but you look up and down the list, and I can pick out 3 to 5 teams that need a goaltender. Not want. There's certainly a lot more that would like to upgrade or want to upgrade at the position, but there are 3 to 5 teams that need a goaltender. And when you have a free agent class that's headlined by Jake Allen, Anton Forsberg, and Ville Husso, I'm thinking the Canucks might be able to strike here and try to ship out a goalie.
We'll see, and I'll let you make your case because I read your article, and I wanna give you an opportunity to give that pitch to the listeners as well, and we can have a great conversation about it. I'm not totally against the idea, but I have skepticism about how practically you can actually take advantage of it. I agree with your assertion that, yeah, the goalie market is thin this offseason, and logically you could look at that and go, is that a way for the Canucks to pick up extra assets or capitalize and strike here? But first of all, I mean, the two main concerns I have are, A, when have goaltenders ever been worth a lot on the trade market? You think back to even the middle of this season, the Avs were able to pick up Mackenzie Blackwood, who's a pretty solid starting goaltender for just a second-round pick. And that was at a time when there weren't a lot of readily available goaltenders. It was also a thin market. I mean, it's the middle of the season. It's like the number of goaltenders available was so scarce that it's why the Edmonton Oilers didn't upgrade at the deadline in terms of bringing another netminder in, despite everybody from the outside crying that their goaltending is arguably their biggest need, and why don't they go out and get a guy? There just weren't many options out there. And so even in a weaker market, all the Sharks were really able to get for Blackwood was a second-round pick. Now I look at Lankinen and go, he's not really better than Mackenzie Blackwood. Blackwood is a higher pedigree goaltender as well. Demko, we know that he has the elite sort of upside when he's on, but after this past year where he's coming off a down year, can't stay healthy, and most importantly, the durability factor, how much are teams really going to be willing to give up? And the second concern I would have is, if you trade one of these guys, who are the Canucks replacing them with, right? If you trade a Kevin Lankinen, on paper, you're going into next season with a Demko-Shilov's tandem, which you cannot do that whatsoever, considering Demko's health and Shilov's, even though he's had success during this AHL postseason run, we've seen him struggle at the NHL level.
Okay, so there's a lot to get into here. Obviously, this all comes as kind of a exercise when it comes to leaving no stone unturned this offseason. We know, we broke it down last week, it's going to be a really busy offseason, and it's going to be one where they need to pull a rabbit out of the hat, and they need to explore all of their options. So with that being said, let's go to each part of that, because you just brought up all 3 were really good points. But the first one about, like, what are teams going to give up? When it comes to the trade, the way I'm looking at it, Harm, is they need to pull off so many things. And because they didn't make any moves at the deadline, they only have X amount of assets. If you can keep a B-level prospect or keep a second-round pick because a team looks at it and says, okay, we think this goaltender, whether it be Lankinen or Demko, and we'll get into that later about which one it should be, we think this is an equal value piece, then that's where I look at it for the Canucks and say, okay, like, they might pull the trigger on that, because then they can go use that second round pick in another trade. They can keep a B-level prospect that they like. It gives you some flexibility and it gives you some versatility in an offseason where you're going to have to make more than just one trade. So that's why I bring up the idea of goaltenders. And yes, there is that aspect of it being a very thin goalie market right now. So with that in mind, I'm looking at it and also saying, okay, they're going to have to make a trade, but they're going to have to sign a guy as well. You're going to have to sign someone in free agency. This is not make the trade because Artur Shilovs is ready to go for next year. It's certainly not that, but can you go out and sign a guy for $1.5 million? I think you can. You look at that goaltending market, there's some guys that are going to be in that range. You can go get one of those guys, and all of a sudden, instead of paying $9.5 million for goaltending, all of a sudden you're paying closer to 6.5 as well. And again, it's in that range depending on which goalie, because obviously Demko and Lankinen have similar cap hits. But again, for both of them, it's $9.5 million. So the Canucks aren't cap strapped by any means, but through the lens of how much they need to get done this offseason, would you say it's fair to say that they're tight?
Yeah, they are tight. I think they, as of now, have around 14 million, which is a decent amount of flexibility. But when you're talking about 2 or 3 top 6 pieces that you'd want to add, especially if one of those guys is a really high AAV player, that space runs out pretty quickly.
Yeah, so I think it's almost like, and we talked about trading Filip Hronek, both you and I are against that, but it's almost like you need to look at it and say, okay, where can we make a calculated, I don't want to use the word downgrade, but reduction on our roster and replace it with something cheaper and still get better up front? I think you hit 2 birds with 1 stone if you trade a goaltender. Now, that being said, it's still an interesting conversation to have because, like you said as well, you don't know what the future holds for Thatcher Demko. How much value does he have on the open market? Kevin Lankinen's got a no-move clause kicking in on July 1. One aspect of it all that I kind of look at is I think part of it is going to be how those conversations between the Canucks and between Demko go when it comes to an extension. If they can figure out an extension and they're so far apart if they can't figure out an extension and they're so far apart when they go to talk, then yeah, maybe the Canucks look to trade Thatcher Demko. But like, let's say they get an extension done, I'm going to guess that it would be Kevin Lankinen that would get traded in that scenario. I don't think they want to spend $9.5 million on goaltending next year. And I know I said I had a gut feeling last week. I just said I have a gut feeling that they're going to trade a goaltender. Now I'm starting to think that this is something they really should explore. I'm not going to sit here and say they must do this. They're idiots if they don't do this. It's certainly not it. But it's something that I think, in the interest of leaving no stone unturned, this is something that I think they have to explore this offseason.
Yeah, I think here's the way I view it. If we're simply talking about trading one of these guys for a second round pick, I get your thought process and rationale that, okay, that's another asset in your arsenal to go out and acquire and address another need, because obviously the Canucks don't have a lot of just expendable trade chips that they can throw out to fill some of their needs. I get that.
No, sorry, it's not to trade for a second. It's in lieu of giving up a second.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I get, if I understand what you're saying you could move one of those guys for, let's say, a second round pick, and then that gives you an extra second round pick that you can then give up in a separate trade, where now that means you maybe don't have to give up one of your prospects that you otherwise would have had to in adding, let's say, a top 6 forward.
Very similar. Like your scenario works as well. But what I'm saying is, like, let's say they go make a trade for Noah Cates. Okay. And the Flyers are saying, okay, we want a second round pick plus this. You could just take out the second round pick of that deal and say, here's Thatcher Demko instead, or here's Kevin Lankinen instead. That's what I'm saying. Like, in the trade. Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Right. But your scenario works too.
So here's what I'd say. If teams are valuing these guys at roughly just a second round pick, I probably wouldn't pull the trigger, just because the risk that you'd be incurring with your goaltending and my sort of fear about how you'd be able to replace one of those guys, I wouldn't be comfortable with that. Goaltending is going to be important for this team next season. Defensive play is going to be really important, because even with forward upgrades, I don't expect the Canucks to be this high octane offense. They've got so much work to do to take that next step. And again, my worry would sort of be if you cash in on one of those guys to get an asset, all of a sudden you've created a hole that, are you going to have to spend another asset to go out and fill it? And maybe this is where you've got a goaltender that you really like in the $1-ish million range. and you're able to sign a guy. And I know you sort of brought that idea up, but you sort of alluded to it. Jake Allen sort of leads this class, and after that, it gets pretty thin pretty quickly. So if the UFA class is already weak at the top, are you really going to be able to find a bargain guy that is bona fide NHL caliber, not just a pure sort of like traditional backup?
Yeah, that's going to be tough. Like that's part of it. That is tough. I wonder what, and like Ville Huso's probably a bad example. I think Ville Huso ends up signing in like that $2.5 to $3 million range. And then if you're moving off of Lankinen or Demko, it's just, okay, why are you doing that? Why are you moving a known commodity to gain $1.5 million in cap space? But if you go down a bit lower, again, like Anton Forsberg, again, I think he's probably also in that range. But like, what does Dan Vladar cost you, right? Like, can you get Dan Vladar for $1.5 million? I don't think he's going to stick in Calgary. 1.5 million, like I think I'd be okay with that because that's significant cap savings. Like that's either 3.5 or $4 million in cap savings. And like that's a big chunk of change. And I also don't think it's a big drop off. And the other aspect in all of this, Harm, is that you're signing a plan B if Archer Shelovs isn't ready, right? Like you're not going into it and saying, well, Archer Shelovs is ready or he's not ready. You're just saying, yeah, he might be ready to take that next step, but we're not sure of it. So we're going to sign a guy that can be a plan B in case that's not the case. Unlike last year where you head into the year and you say, yes, this is going to be our backup. And of course, we all know how that ended up playing out.
The issue is right now with Lankinen and Demko, neither one, you can't count on either one of them to play like confidently like 50 to 55 games. You can't. So if you trade one of those guys and you're bringing a Dan Vladar in, you have to be prepared for that guy to potentially play 30 to 40 games, depending on just how the other guy's workload is, fatigue, injury. And that's where, okay, if Vladar was, let's say, a backup for, you know, like a healthy Demko where you knew like pre all the injuries that you're going to get 55 games out of Thatcher Demko, and you just need Vladar to sort of play mop-up duty and play more like a traditional backup, then great. You wouldn't have concerns about that. But if it's, let's say, Demko and Vladar, there's a pretty real possibility that at some point in the season, Demko goes down with injury and now Vladar is your number one. Are you confident and comfortable going down that route? And I'd say I'd be open-minded to the possibility of dealing a goaltender, and this is one scenario that you brought up in your article. If, let's say, the Canucks are going after JJ Peterka, and we know the Sabres need goaltending help because Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen had a really disappointing campaign, and they sort of need a starter. If they really value Demko, for example, and they value him at a premium, more than, let's say, just like the equivalent of a second round pick.
Exactly.
And they're thinking, all right, this is an opportunity to bring like a bona fide starter in. We can extend him while he's coming off a down year. Like if they're willing to sort of almost kind of like overpay and view Demko as a potential centerpiece for a JJ Peterka trade, then yeah, absolutely. Because you look at Peterka and he's a guy that, has 70-point potential for you next season as a young potential star winger. And if it's a Demko plus, something else, Demko and, the 15th overall pick this year for a guy like JJ Peterka, a winger that has that sort of rare ability to be a star, then yeah, I'll do it for that 100%. But if it's, let's say, we're talking about the scenario for a Noah Cates, who I very much like, but ultimately I sort of view him more as like a Pia Suter replacement. That's where I'm not sure if I'd be confident pulling the trigger, just because I don't think he's a high end enough piece to justify taking the risk at the goaltending position.
Now, the reason we bring up Philly with Noah Cates and the reason we bring up Buffalo with JJ Peterka is because at the top I said there's about 3 to 5 teams that need a goaltender. There's certainly 3, and Buffalo is one of them. Philly is one of them, and I would say Columbus is probably the other one. We don't need to go down the Columbus route. Cole Sillinger, make it happen. Adam Fantilli getting love, I'm sure, in the chat in a second here. People love them some Adam Fantilli trade rumors, and Kent Johnson as well. But I think that's the premise of it all, Harm, is just, can the Canucks create a market where their goaltenders are not overvalued, but valued highly, like you just said, where they get brought up in conversations where they're getting a big piece back. And I know you bring up Noah Cates as being a smaller piece, but like if it's Noah Cates or a first or a second, right? Or excuse me, if it's Noah Cates for a first, a second, or a goaltender, first or second or goaltender, like I think about the goaltender in that scenario as well. And I think about if the Canucks can take advantage of this. And it's just a thought I had recently that, yeah, you know what? Maybe there is some way that they don't have to pay $9.5 million for goaltending and they can get a significant piece back. Box Van Gogh said this in the chat. He says, strength and goal, even at that price, is too important to compromise. I'm curious what the poll question responses are on this, because, man, I just... They have a lot of work to do this offseason. I don't think they necessarily need to trade a goaltender. It's just at least explore it. You're not in any rush to trade him, and yeah, you probably shouldn't do it for a second round pick. But like you just said, like if there are teams that want to overpay for a goaltender, you have to be available. You have to make yourself available in those conversations.
Yeah, I think my final take on it is if a team is willing to overpay and it, like, pulling the trigger on a goalie trade is what allows you to land like a truly high-end top six player that you otherwise wouldn't either have the cap space or the assets to acquire, then absolutely you explore it, you consider it. But if not, I think you keep both guys. And even though you're committing $9.5 million in net next season, I would keep both of them.
Yeah. I wrote about this at CanucksArmy.com, so people can go check it out there. All right, our opening segment, which we just flew through, actually it was about 20 minutes. Our opening segment is brought to you by Pacific Toyota dealers, who want to tell you about the 100% electric Toyota BZ4X, an SUV packed with plenty of space. The BZ4X can handle any terrain and can take you from the city to the slopes. It's backed by the peace of mind that comes with knowing you're driving a Toyota, and if you're driving a BZ4X, you get access to HOV lanes even if you're driving alone. When you choose the BZ4X, you can get a $5,000 incentive, and now you can finance the 2025 BZ4X LE all-wheel drive from 0.99% APR for 36 months. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. All right. Our poll question. Let's get to our poll question. We'll pull it up. It was basically what you and I were talking about. If it helps them keep a draft pick and or a prospect, should the Canucks trade a goaltender this offseason to upgrade at forward? 80.1% of people say yes. 19.9% say no. These results are actually pretty interesting. I didn't expect it to be overwhelmingly yes like this.
I didn't either. I'm pretty surprised. I think the way you framed the question was smart in terms of like the upgrade at forward aspect. But I'm still surprised it ended up being 80% voting yes.
Yeah, I didn't even try to, like, sometimes I try to frame it to make myself look right in any debate that you and I have, but I didn't even have to do that here. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is, if it is for a significant upgrade, and ultimately that's the wild card in all of this, is that the Canucks don't have to trade a goaltender. They really don't have to. And I wrote that in the article that, like, why don't the Canucks deal from a position of strength for a change? Because there are three that need goaltenders, and like even if they get that, you know, the top two would be, I guess, Ville Husso and Anton Forsberg, because Jake Allen's 34, right? Even if they land those two guys, I don't know. There's still a third team out there that's looking for a goaltender, and there's going to be more that want to upgrade at the goaltending position. Absolutely there is. A month ago, I probably would have said that Edmonton would be in that conversation, but I don't think Edmonton's going to be looking. So it's an interesting one to kind of keep an eye on, because yeah, it is very thin when it comes to the open market this offseason. The Canucks have two good goalies. There are very few teams that have two goalies of the caliber that the Canucks do right now.
Yeah, like I said earlier, it hinges on what the actual trade value of these guys is, because historically goaltenders have not been worth a lot, even when it is on paper what you would assume to be a seller's market. That's ultimately what it comes down to for me.
Okay. That was our poll question, and it was brought to you by the Vancouver Whitecaps. They tied last night. They had a draw last night, but Whitecaps FC are headed to Mexico and will play in the 2025 CONCACAF Champions Cup final on Sunday, June 1st against Cruz Azul. This is the first time in club history Whitecaps FC has reached the final and just the third time a Canadian team has reached the final. Check out whitecapsfc.com and buy your tickets for the next game as well. And we're all going to be watching that game on Sunday, Cruz Azul. Now, the unbeaten run in MLS play, okay, it was already a club record. It just moved to 15 matches because they, like I said, they had a draw last night. So that record continues, and their unbeaten run in MLS play goes from 10 to 11. So impressive stuff going on with the Vancouver Whitecaps right now, and we're happy, certainly happy to have them on board. All right, is it time for the feud? I think so. Let's do it. Let's get to Family Feud. Take it away, technical producer Jacob Lazar.
There we go. Speaking of the Whitecaps, I decided to wear my Whitecaps hat today. I got a couple things to say before we get started with Family Feud today. I don't think you guys are going to win, but you can't blame me because there was some tainted data this week.
Okay.
So, two things I got to say. For those of you who maybe didn't understand some of the questions.
Wait. Let me get Harman. Harman's got to put his earbuds back in. Harman should hear this, but he's looking down.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Also, okay, yeah. Harman.
I don't know if Harman
I don't think he's clued in yet. Anyways.
It's okay.
So for those of you who responded in the survey and said, I don't really understand what you want out of this question. Clearly you don't watch a lot of like real Family Feud because I followed the format of some of those like real Family Feud questions. Watch this one or listen to this one, and then you'll totally understand what I was asking. And when we do these questions in the future, you'll know how to respond. For those of you who are like, this is a stupid question, I'm not answering it. When you do that, all you do is ruin the game for everybody else. Because now I got a bunch of data, and either I have to just randomly fill it in with other responses, which
is what we'll do, right?
Which is what we'll do. But again, it ruins the sanctity of the game.
Jacob, it sounds like you made stupid questions.
I did not make stupid questions, but some people were not willing to answer the questions I made. Look, there's only so many questions I can ask about second line wingers and third pair right defensemen. Sometimes we got to get a little bit more creative like they do on the real show, so it's not repetitive. Rant over. Let's get started. David Quadrelli will be going first. He will have 25 seconds on the clock. His time will begin when I finish reading the first question. Quads, if you can't think of a response, say pass. We'll come back to it at the end. Are you ready to go?
Of course.
All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that the Canucks will be a better team after July 1st this year?
Oh, 8.
How many years, if ever, until the Sedins are coaching in the NHL?
1.
Name a word that follows the word goalie.
Coach.
Name a Canuck, past or present, whose last name starts with the letter H.
Higgins.
Name a piece of hockey equipment that would smell really bad if you left it in your bag.
Gloves.
Gloves? Yep, we'll take it.
Oh, yeah, I think we did well. Why would... Okay, those weren't stupid questions at all. Who decided not to answer and say this is...
Multiple people. Crazy. I had like 6 or 7 people. They're like, I don't know what... Now, the ones who are like, I don't know what you wanted me to say, fine. Like, you'll understand going forward. But there was about 2 or 3, or maybe even more than 2 or 3. There was 2 or 3 for one specific question. Like, this is dumb. I'm not answering this. So, I don't know. I don't know what people's deal is. But I'm tallying up your score now.
Okay. So, Harman, Jacob was saying before you joined, as he does that, he was talking about how there was like 3 or 4 people that responded to the survey with like, this is a dumb question, I'm not answering it. So we had to change the questions up, or change. I think he made, what'd you do? The first answer just was worth those points instead, Jacob?
No, I kind of just filled it in with some math, kind of tried to keep the the distribution about the same. But
Okay.
yeah,
people in
again,
chat
it
are saying
ruins the sanctity of the game when you don't respond to the questions.
Which question was hard or dumb? I don't get it. Those were fine questions. Anyways,
Number 2 and number 5 both had some remarks.
Those were great questions. Especially number 5. I thought that was a great question. And people in the chat said mine is a veteran answer. I like that.
Yeah, Quads. The bad news is, as I'm tallying up your score, I've had to do a lot of like Control F to search for it because it's not in the top 6. So
now this was a bad survey, right, Quads?
Dumb questions, dumb survey, stupid game. Jacob
luckily,
screwed it all up.
Your last response saved you. You got up to 54 points.
Ooh.
Saved you to get up to 54 points?
Yeah.
With the one answer. Oh, you're saying with everything?
Yeah, 54 points total thanks to the last answer.
What do you mean he got saved with his last answer?
It was 54 points. That's what I thought. So we're at 54. Dumb survey. Everybody's right. Everybody send Jacob hate mail.
Sure. All right, Harm, you're going to have 30 seconds on the clock. Your time will begin when I finish reading the first question. If you can't think of a response, say pass. We'll come back to it at the end. If you give one of Quad's answers, you'll hear the buzzer, and I will ask you to try again. You need a big round, 146 to get to 200. Are you ready, Harm?
Yeah, I'm the Dallas Stars down 3-1 in the series. Let's go.
There we go. Hopefully not the Carolina Hurricanes down 3-1 in the series. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that the Canucks will be a better team after July 1st this year?
7.
How many years, if ever, until the Sedins are coaching in the NHL?
Never.
Name a word that follows the word goalie.
Goalie pads.
Name a Canuck past or present whose last name starts with the letter H.
Hoaglander.
Name a piece of hockey equipment that would smell really bad if you left it in your bag.
Gloves.
Try again.
Shin pads.
Shin pads, we'll take it. All right.
All right, so we didn't win. Just tally it up.
No, we didn't win.
Okay, well, it'll be close. Now, I think I would be a little bit more confident for you guys if there was a different answer to that last question. Because I know for a fact you guys missed the number 1, or Quads got the number 1 with gloves, but
I was going to say gloves
the
isn't the number 1 answer. Canucks Convo listeners have never played hockey in their lives because gloves are the smelliest piece of equipment, and like it's not close.
Well, I know it's just after gloves. There wasn't much time left on the clock.
All right, well,
and,
we'll go through this. We'll go through this. We'll see if we can get there. All right, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you the Canucks will be a better team after July 1st? Quads, you got the number 4 answer with 8. Harm, you got the number 2 answer with 7. 5 was the number 1 answer. So a lot of people with the apathy right there.
Oh, come on. They're going to be trading draft picks away. They're going to be like trading prospects away. They're going to be better. Not saying they're going to be necessarily the best moves for the franchise long term, but this is an all-in off season. They're going to be better on paper.
I almost said 10. I thought 8 was whatever.
Especially Jim Rutherford. Look at how many draft picks he traded away in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, exactly.
How many years, if ever, until the Sedins are coaching in the NHL? Quads, you said 1. That was the number 6 answer. Only 4 points. Harm, you hit the number 1, though. Never, with 37 points.
What was number 2?
Number 2 was 5+ years. So a lot of people...
You think they're going to be coaching in 1 year?
Yeah.
Yeah. Write it down. Write it down, Jacob. Add it to the file.
Add it to your list. Yeah. Name a word that follows the word goalie. Sorry, this was one that had some people saying, I don't understand. I hope these guys made it pretty clear. Quads responded with goalie coach. Harman, you responded with goalie pads. That was the number 2 answer. I actually love the number 1 answer. This was really creative. Goalie goal was the number 1 answer.
Oh,
goalie mask, goalie glove, goalie controversy, goalie tandem. So a lot of really good responses in there. There was also some like goalie guru, goalie graveyard, which I felt was interesting too. So
what did coach come in at?
It was like the number 7 answer or something.
Oh my gosh.
Only 4 points. Sorry.
Okay.
So yeah, you guys are up to 131. You need 69 points over the last 2 rounds.
Here we go.
Yikes. It's over.
Name a Canuck past or present whose last name starts with the letter H. Quads, you said Chris Higgins. It's only 5 points there. It was the number 7 or 8 answer. Harm, you said Nils Höglander. That was the number 4 answer. 12 points. I am shocked. This is probably the first time ever where Quinn Hughes was not a number 1 answer when he made sense to me. Hughes was the number 2
Why did
answer.
I not think of...
I didn't think of that either. I just immediately went to 2011.
Philip Hronek was the number 1 answer.
Oh, what?
What?
Philip Hronek, the number 1 answer.
How many points?
Because we were talking about him, a potential Philip Hronek trade. You guys discussed that on the show the other day.
Yeah.
This one was really interesting, though, because Hronek, Hughes, Ham Hughes, who was number 3, Höglander, who was number 4, and Jannik Hansen, who was number 5, were all separated by only 4 points. It was a crazy distribution. You guys need 57, so I can already tell you it's going to be back-to-back losses for you guys. Name a piece of hockey equipment that smelled really bad if you left it in the bag. Quads, you got gloves. That was number 1, 27 points. Shin pads was number 5, but only 6 points for you there. Socks.
What was number 2?
Socks was the number 2.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm assuming socks that you put in your skates, not the socks that go over your shin pads.
Also a bad answer. Just wash them.
But
the whole point is you're leaving them in the bag.
That's the whole point of the question.
Oh, all right.
This is the gear that you forgot in your bag overnight, and then when you go to practice the next day, what's going to smell the worst? I'd say socks are probably up there.
All right, fair enough. Who the hell changes socks when they get to the rink? That's not. Anyways, whatever. All good.
No, you don't just wear your street socks into your skates, Quads.
Yeah, you do. Of course you do.
No, you don't.
I feel like Jacob's right on this one.
You wear your slides. I guess maybe you gotta wear a suit at certain levels, but yeah, I don't know. I wear the same socks.
I would say 97% of hockey players change into a set of socks or go barefoot in their skates. They don't just wear the socks they show up to the rink in. Maybe some beer league guys who just don't care anymore might, but
all right,
not the NHLers, that's for sure.
Okay, so new survey, is it out?
No, not yet. Should have it ready for tomorrow.
Okay, cook up an easy one, please. You know what we need? We need one that has 4 options, so that there's not 30 answers.
Yeah, I'll try. I mean, look, you guys still could have won this one if you guys had picked up the number ones that you'd missed. The scale of 1 to 10 one, that was tough. You guys were a lot more optimistic than the fan base was.
We're right, though. The team is going to be better after July 1st. People,
read
the questions, folks. You're ruining it. All right. Can I have access to this data? I want to start banning people from answering future surveys if I don't get their answers.
So it is completely anonymous. We don't track by email or anything like that.
Let's start asking for home addresses as well.
Home addresses.
All right. That was Family Feud. And before we get to anyone else today, I want to make sure I mention Greta Bar YVR. Of course, you know by now that it's a great spot to watch the big game, but did you know it's an even better spot for your upcoming party or event? If you need a venue for a team building or summer social event, check out Greta. With a great street food menu and the arcade, it's always a fun time with plenty of options, both food-wise and game-wise. My personal favorite being the Smash Burger, and in the arcade, the football and basketball games. Make Greta your spot for your next event. For more info and to book your event, go to gretabar.com. Greta Bar YVR, 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. All right. I had a few things I wanted to mention. Patrick Waugh remaining as head coach of the Islanders. Surprise you at all?
No.
Didn't surprise you?
No. I have a take that if I was hired as a GM and there was a coach already there who has term left on his contract, unless he's a tire fire disaster of a coach, I would just keep him, especially if you're in a situation like the Isles where the goal isn't to make the playoffs next year because you're in a different transition phase. Because when you hire a coach, that's your guy now. That's your responsibility. You've already played the hire a new coach card, if that sort of makes sense. Whereas think about it from a GM's perspective. If you're a Matthew Darche coming in, as long as Waugh is decent, and you're making ownership happy because they don't have to pay for another coach. And if things go sideways, that's your scapegoat. right? And then when you hire, like anytime you hire a coach, it already starts the clock on, well, you already brought your guy in, and you only get to play the hire new head coach card so many times. And so if I was a GM, Patrick Roy is he's a fine head coach. I don't think he's particularly good or bad. But especially under contract, it sounded like the Isles weren't necessarily thrilled about the idea of maybe going out and hiring an additional coach. I would like think about ownership right off the bat. Would be like, oh, he wants to keep the coach. He's saving me, a couple $2-3 million a year. It's a good way to start, in my opinion. It gives you a little bit of a longer leash.
You're thinking like owner Quads. I love it. You're absolutely correct, and I didn't think of it from that perspective. That's good stuff, Harm.
I mean, like Ken Holland keeps Jim Hiller. That's a little bit of a different situation though, because the Kings actually need playoff success, whereas a situation like the Isles, where again it's going to take a while before you're one of the top teams in the league again, you have more leeway to have a down year or whatnot.
I don't think we talked about this enough, but I really thought Ken Holland was just done. Like, I thought he was going to retire. Not even like, oh, I can't believe someone hired Ken Holland again. Although I can't believe someone hired Ken Holland again. I didn't think Ken Holland wanted to work again. I thought he was just kind of like, yeah, contract's up in Edmonton. He got paid a ridiculous amount of money in Edmonton. I don't know if that's public, but yeah, you could probably guess that he got paid a lot of money to come be the GM of the Oilers. Well, but I thought he'd wanted to be a president, not a GM.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised, but then you think about the fit, right? LA, West Coast City. He's from the interior. That's where he spends his off seasons. Close to home. LA is a sunny market all the time. You don't have to deal with as much media pressure there as you do in a Canadian market. That seems like a nice spot to go, and you're taking over a team that their floor case is always we're at least going to make the playoffs. It's not like a huge onerous project to sort of turn the team around. I mean, it's going to be difficult for them to get over that hump, that Oilers hump specifically, but you're not taking over a team where there are a ton of problems. It's like when Rutherford took over the Canucks a few years ago, where it's like, ooh, this is gonna be a project and a half to get this team back on track. It's a pretty good situation overall.
I'm just curious what it looks like with him at the helm. Also, I didn't know he spent his summers in the interior. That's interesting.
He was a big part of when the Canucks went back to doing Penticton Young Stars. Mm-hmm. Holland was GM of the Oilers. That's a big reason why it happened. Like, Holland wanted Young Stars in Penticton. He's from the area.
Yeah, he's from Vernon.
Interesting. And he still spends time in Vernon?
Yeah, I believe he goes back there every summer.
Wow. That's great. Good for him.
I mean, it's one of the best places in North America to golf. So if you're an NHL GM, I can think of worse places to spend summers than the interior of British Columbia.
All right. Okay. Let's get to anyone else. Let's get to it. It's brought to you by the Vancouver Canadians, who are back at home this week. Lots of good stuff going on right now at the net. They got a Saturday matinee coming up this weekend, and they've got giveaways, plenty of giveaways. My goodness, the Seas do a lot of giveaways. Now, we've also got the, I've told you about this for a while, Sunday, June 1st, Bob Brown Bear Stuffy giveaway for the first 1,000 fans, 12 and under. It is a family fun Sunday presented by White Spot. Make sure you head on down to the Nat. For tickets, call 604-872-5232 or check out CanadiansBaseball.com. All right, some other headlines around the league, Harm. Jonathan Marchessault, open to being traded, according to Frank Saravalli. Should the Canucks make a play for Jonathan Marchessault? Obviously, it didn't go very well in Nashville his first year on that new contract.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be totally against the idea. Not saying he'd be my number one target, but you could sort of look at him as a Brock Besser kind of replacement. Goal scorer, right shot, right winger, can help you on the power play. And honestly, scoring 56 points on that Predators team that couldn't produce at all, and he had no talented centers to play with, it's pretty good, all things considered. And the cap hit, I know he's obviously a bit older. He's 34 years old, and there's term left on that deal. But a $5.5 million cap hit is not bad, especially if the Predators are open to retaining a little bit extra. He's not my A target, right? Like, if Jonathan Marchessault is the best forward you acquire this summer, you're screwed if you're the Canucks. But as like a check down option, if he's the second or third best forward you acquire this summer, and again, you sort of look at him as a cheaper, older Brock Besser replacement, and the trade cost isn't very high, I would explore the possibility.
Yep, absolutely agree with you. You brought it up. The main point I was going to make is the fact he put up that many points on that Nashville team. That's impressive to me. I don't know. I haven't seen
42 goals a year ago in Vegas.
Exactly. I haven't seen anything that makes me think, oh, well, he's washed. And I know, again, like you said, he's 34. He's going to turn 35 at the end of December this year. Still 3 years or 4 years left on that contract.
It's the contract's through 2028, 29.
Yeah, so 4 years left, including this upcoming season. Yeah, we'll see. It's certainly going to be interesting to see how that how his career plays out, but I wouldn't be scared if I were the Canucks to make that trade. Now, I don't know. Again, he's got a 15-team no-trade list. He might not want to come to Vancouver, but apparently he wants to play in Montreal. Obviously, he's from Montreal, or excuse me, he's from Quebec, so that makes sense. But hey, if you're Vancouver and he's not on that no-trade list, I'd certainly look into it. What do you think it would cost to get Jonathan Marchessault out of Nashville? Like, this is one that we can confidently say Nashville's probably not trading for a goaltender.
Yeah, that's tough to say. First of all, it depends on if they're retaining like $1 million, let's say, because then that's a way for the Preds to juice his trade value a little bit. Maybe they don't want to because the term left, but the remaining term of that contract, if you want a team to take it on at the full 5.5 freight, it's going to lessen the trade return you sort of get for him. I don't want to speculate. I would honestly just be guessing, but we're not talking about, I don't think we're talking about like, a first round pick or anything like that, to be honest.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that's what makes him an intriguing option. He's in the Noah Cates range where it's okay. This isn't the only move you're going to make this offseason, but it is certainly something to keep an eye on. And again, that report came from Frank Seravalli that he is open to being traded after that first season in Nashville. Speaking of players open to being traded, this one also came from Frank. Multiple Sabres players, including JJ Peterka, unhappy with the direction of the team. Big shocker there, of course. There could be some movement. Players, a couple players apparently would be open to a move. The name that stands out to me beyond JJ Peterka, who, by the way, I'm all in on. Go get JJ Peterka. He's number 1 on the trade targets list over at Daily Faceoff. But Alex Tuch, does Alex Tuch intrigue you at all?
I mean, Alex Tuch is an outstanding player. He is supremely fast. He can score at a top 6 level, big body, 6'4", 219. 36 goals this past year. He's legit. He's a really good player. Now, what you have to keep in mind with Alex Tuch is that he's a UFA at the end of next season. So if you're making that trade, you're giving up those pieces, you better be 100% confident that you're going to be able to sign him to a long-term extension. Otherwise, trading a haul for 1 year of Alex Tuch would be a disaster. It'd be a nightmare. And of course, this
would be those ones where you make the trade and it's immediately announced after there's an extension.
Well, that's what I'm clarifying. But sometimes teams make that trade and you're just like the Sens, for example. When they made the Linus Ullmark trade, they didn't know for sure that they were going to be able to re-sign Ullmark. They worked on it. They were able to make him comfortable, eventually got it done. But the point I'm trying to make for the Canucks, especially as a team where your direction is kind of uncertain, medium term, I don't know how much of a destination Vancouver honestly is at this point, how easy it is going to be to keep top talent. I'm just really emphasizing that if you're going to give up a haul to get Alex Tuch, who's a really good player, you need a guarantee that he's open to signing an extension here.
Here's one for you, though. They don't sign him to an extension. Well, maybe that's a bad idea. But I was going to say, what could you get for Alex Tuch at the deadline? You're just buying yourself assets.
Less than what you paid for him this summer.
Touche. Okay. I had more than anyone else. It was a really busy day around the league. Oh, yeah. Did you see this? The Washington Capitals accidentally announced Alex Ovechkin's retirement. Did you see this?
Yeah, I saw it.
Now, they're saying false alarm. So for those that didn't see it, it was an email that went out to season ticket holders this morning. And it basically said, October is the start of Capitals hockey and Alex Ovechkin's, and in all capital letters, they wrote it in all capital letters, Alex Ovechkin's final NHL season. Now, the Caps put out a statement shortly after that read, "No decision has been made on Alex Ovechkin's future following the 25-26 NHL season. An email was sent from an individual with the corporate sales department that mistakenly alluded to next year being Alex Ovechkin's final year." Look, I get it, okay? Alex Ovechkin, after everything he's done for the team, won them their first and only Stanley Cup, broke the goals record this year. He's going to be 40 next year, and it's the final year of his contract. We all really were looking at it and saying that could very well be his last year. Like he broke the goals record. How long does he want to play? Maybe he wants to play longer, but it wouldn't be a shocker to anyone if ahead of this season, the soon-to-be 40-year-old said, "Yeah, you know what, guys? This is going to be it. This is going to be my final season. I broke the record last year. This is going to be my final season. Right off into the sunset." Wouldn't be a shocker. But Alex Ovechkin deserves to make that announcement on his own. And I got to be honest with you, Harm, I'm going to guess that A, this person got fired, and B, that it actually is going to be his last season. Like, that doesn't just come out of nowhere.
Yeah. And can you imagine being the person who sent that email out and just seeing the absolute storm coming out of it, the reaction, the team having to put out a statement and knowing that you're the one responsible for that? That's
someone's getting fired.
But also, how do you not double check something like that? Like, hey, I'm sending this blast out to season ticket holders, and I'm sort of announcing that it's Ovi's last year. Are you not like checking with a supervisor or a department head, or I don't know. I feel like any email that you send out to just season ticket holders as a whole should probably be reviewed, like just anyway. And especially if you're making a sweeping claim about the best player in franchise history, it's going to be his last season. So I'm just surprised that no one caught that, or that there weren't the checks and balances in place for somebody to catch it and be like, "Hey, maybe don't do that."
Okay. Final one that I wanted to mention from around the league, Jonathan Toews. He's making a comeback. He's 100% committed to a comeback. It looks like all options are on the table. I saw Nick Alberga tweeting about it. He had a conversation with Pat Brisson, who's obviously Jonathan Toews' agent, about how all options are just on the table, that he could end up in Toronto. He could end up anywhere. Really, he's going to be looking to make a comeback. Obviously, Harman, this is a really unknown commodity at this age and after this surgery. So I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh, does it make sense for the Canucks?" Like, honestly, I think the answer is no. I think the Canucks need more certainty than what they'd be getting out of Jonathan Toews at this juncture. But certainly interesting that Jonathan Toews is gonna try to make a comeback. Obviously, everybody immediately thinks Winnipeg because he's from Winnipeg, and that would be I think that would actually be a pretty good fit. I think Winnipeg, but again, 37-year-old Jonathan Toews, I'm not looking at it and saying, "Oh, this is someone that Canucks need." I saw we had someone in the chat asking if he could fill in as the 2C or the 3C.
Yeah, he hasn't played in 2 full seasons, right? So, and even his last couple of years in the NHL, like the 2021-22 season, he had 37 points in 71 games. He was a bit better the year after, his final year, with 31 points in 53 games. But now at 37 years old and not having played an NHL game in 2 years, I'll be honest, I'm not even 100% sure that he'd be a full-time bottom 6 center on a contending team. Like, he might be, but it's not a guarantee at this stage in his career when you've missed that amount of time, when you've dealt with the injuries he's dealt with, much less being like a top 6 center stopgap. So
he's over 35, so he's going to have the option of having a performance bonus heavy contract, which is what's going to happen. Like, when you see that contract with Jonathan Toews, it's going to be low. It's going to be a low AAV, but there are going to be a lot of performance bonuses in that contract for sure. And Jacob brought this up as well. Adam Lowry is going to be out for the first couple months of the season, recovering from surgery. He'll be, I think, out till November, December into next year. It'd be shocking if Winnipeg doesn't make a push of some sort for Jonathan Toews. I think that'd be a great story. I'd love to see him come back and, play out his career in Winnipeg.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And again, I think everybody would enjoy watching him in Winnipeg specifically because of that storyline.
Yeah. Okay, Abbotsford Canucks are in action tonight. The Texas Stars visit the Abbey Center. We talked to Phil DiGiuseppe yesterday. People really liking that clip of him talking about Victor Mancini. If you haven't listened to it, folks, go listen to the interview. We have the interview in the podcast catcher as well, just as its own little thing. So you don't need to even watch the whole episode. You can just catch the interview with Phil DiGiuseppe. It was a good one yesterday. It was really good. Okay, I think that's it. Did you have anything else you wanted to get into today?
No, not really.
Actually, I have one more. Anyone else that I want to bring up, and this will go to Harm, obviously, as someone who follows basketball a little closer than Quads does. Conversation in the chat asked who the OKC Thunder of the NHL are. Already loaded with talent, draft picks, and obviously OKC is probably going to be the favorite to win the championship here as they're heading into the NBA Finals. There's no comparison to this, right, Harm? Like OKC, I believe they're the youngest team in the NBA. They're likely going to win a title. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 5 picks in the first round of this year's NBA draft because of all the trades that they made leading up to it. Like, are we looking at potentially like the NBA's greatest dynasty, like competing with that Golden State run from about 10 years ago?
I mean, yeah, they're incredible. They're so young too, right? They like Shea is young, Holmgren is young. They're gonna have a long runway, and to also have all that all those draft picks to keep building is a weapon. And yeah, there's no NHL comp for the position they're in. The closest I could think of is sort of maybe at the end of the 2022-23 season when the Devils made the playoffs. They beat the Rangers in round 1 and then lost in the second round. They were a 112-point team at the time, and that's when I want to double check just how young some of these guys were. Yeah, that's when Jack Hughes was 21, Heischer was 23, Mercer was 20, Bratt's 24. Luke Hughes hadn't even arrived yet. Like, their prospect pool was pretty strong. At that point, coming off of winning a round, that summer is maybe the closest comparable I can think of. And obviously it hasn't worked out for the Devils for various reasons since then. But that's the closest example I can think of to the Thunder, but that's not even remotely comparable when you think of like the Devils at the time were just young, up and coming team, 112 points, and they've got a bright future, all this and that. Whereas the Thunder are odds on favorites likely to win the chip, and they still have a lot more.
Yeah, like someone in the chat said Montreal, and it's like Montreal's not even close to what OKC is, right? Like OKC has the NBA MVP and is about to win a championship and still has the future. It is interesting, though, because obviously the reason they were able to build that team is because a lot of other GMs were impatient and made some really dumb trades with Oklahoma City, but it's a salary cap league, and, you know, we've seen NHL teams copy tactics and strategies from other leagues in the past. Are we going to see some NHL teams kind of get a little crazy like OKC has, trade some big name players, load up on a crap ton of draft picks and prospects, and try and follow that same path where you're going to compete with all of your top players under the age of 25 and just load up on draft picks for the future? I'm curious
Doesn't
to see.
OKC just have this one guy, though? Different sport. It's not going to work in hockey because they
don't just have one guy, Quads. They got about 5 or 6 guys who are like legit stars under.
But they only have 5 or 6 guys. That's all you need, because you need more than that in hockey.
Yeah, sure. But I'd say in hockey, like I agree, but in hockey, star power matters more than depth. Like, you can fill out depth. I mean, look at the Oilers, the success that once you get Matthew Tkachuk, and land those sort of like have those elite, then Sam Reinhart, and you have those elite difference makers at the top of the lineup. Like, that's what matters most in this league. Obviously not anywhere close to the extent of the NBA, but star power matters a lot. And I think, no, to answer your question, Jacob, no, I don't think teams will follow that strategy, just because you don't see prospects of SGA's caliber at the time moved. And the reason the Clippers were willing to give up SGA is it wasn't just Paul George, but by getting Paul George, you were essentially guaranteed to also get Kawhi Leonard, that he was going to sign there. So in essence, yeah, it looks like a terrible trade. And obviously the Clippers with Kawhi and Paul George were sort of busts. But at the time, you're thinking, all right, we have to give up this elite prospect who's probably going to become a star, but we're getting Paul George in his prime before like this current version where he's just always hurt. and Kawhi
Who did they
Leonard.
trade him for? Who did they trade him for?
Trade who for?
Paul George.
That's Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. That's who. So
The
Thunder had
MVP.
Paul George.
Yeah.
And they traded him to the Clippers, and they got SGA back.
That's crazy.
Plus multiple first-round picks.
Plus multiple first-round picks.
That's crazy. Holy smokes.
Like what's the NHL equivalent of that trade? That's like, I mean, I guess the multiple first-round picks hold up, but then the star player you're getting back for the future superstar player you're trading out, like it's almost even hard to think of what that comp could be because of, you're right, Harm. It's just, you don't see a guy like SGA in the NHL get traded very often, if ever.
Yeah, like I don't know, maybe who would be the Paul George comparison? Like somebody who's like a superstar, but not like a McDavid Draisaitl. I don't know, like not quite a Matthews either. Like imagine somebody just below that, like Matthews tier of player maybe. But then you also know that if you're getting Matthews, but you're also getting Kawhi Leonard, who I mean at the time he was just coming off of winning that chip with the Raptors. He was a top 5 player in the league. So you're getting 2 top 10 players in the league. And so
I got it.
You can sort of understand why at that point you're thinking, as dumb as it looks in hindsight, that okay, we're willing to give up this elite prospect.
It'd be the Jack Eichel trade if Peyton Krebs went on to be a 40-goal scorer.
You need Peyton Krebs to be a 50-goal scorer and a Hart Trophy winner.
Yeah, like he won the MVP this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. For argument's sake, Peyton Krebs scoring 40 goals, he's not going to put up 0 assists. He could win the Hart with 40 goals.
Yeah, so, but like, yeah, that trade, if Peyton Krebs was like as good as, I don't know, like Kaprizov or Draisaitl.
Yeah. Like that's that type of thing where it's like, I don't know, you get like the Clippers basically are like, we're getting Kaprizov and we're getting
this is
Matthews at the same time.
I need to stop this. This is actually making me want to blow my brains out. Like this is brutal. I don't even want to. I guess the
last thing I'll say on it is when SGA was traded, like, you know, he was towards the top of rookie of the year voting that 1 year with LA, but wasn't quite there. So it's not the perfect comp, but like imagine SGA is Macklin Celebrini, right? So a team is a team is making a trade for Macklin Celebrini right now. That's what happened when SGA got traded. And
they're doing it because they're like, we're going to get 2 top 10 players in the league.
Are you guys done? Holy shit. Like, let's end this. This is crazy. This is unbelievable. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Oh my gosh.
He's Canadian. Stop.
No, it's great. It's great, but it's like, oh, let's break down this hypothetical NHL.
Well, it's it's like one of the most significant things in sports.
The chat was into it. We had questions about it. We had discussions.
This is 10 times more interesting than you going off about some. Oh, look at this high A prospect that's gonna be the next MLB star.
Watch it. Okay, watch it. You're talking about a sponsor, man.
Or you're like Seattle Mariners. I don't know, man. This is way more interesting than baseball talk.
It's not. No, basketball sucks. I hate basketball so much. Okay, let's get moving here. Let's get to our Bet 365 bet of the day. The Seattle Mariners. No, I'm joking. We're not doing a Mariners bet. The Edmonton Oilers are underdogs tonight. Harm, do you think the Oilers close it out tonight?
I expect them to close out the series. I don't know about tonight specifically. I don't get the gut feeling for single games.
It's happening tonight. I get gut feelings for everything. I got a gut feeling about everything. Give me the money line. Oilers money line. You can get the underdog Oilers at plus 110. Matthias Ekholm back in. Troy Stetcher out. I don't like that. Troy Stetcher should have been in the lineup tonight. Run 70. I think it would have been smart to run 70 tonight. I'm surprised they're not. But you can get Oilers money line at plus 110, and that is what we are taking for our bet of the day, brought to you by Bet365. If you want to get on the action for the Stanley Cup playoffs, Bet365 has got you covered. From game props, player props, totals, and the money line, you can even bet on futures like series winners, conference champions, the Stanley Cup champions, and much, much more. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get it on the game, an official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. All right, we will close it out there for my co-host Harman and our technical producer Jacob Bizarre. My name is Dave Wujelli. Thanks so much for the episode of Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.